On this episode of the Bigfooty International podcast, I talked to Jason Arnold, the coach of the Canadian Northern Lights and also the coach of the Canadian Midnight Suns. And he's going to tell us all about his team's preparation, his hopes, his dreams, and who to look out for in the International Cup. All that and more coming right up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the International Bigfooty podcast. I'm talking today to Mr. Jason Arnold, the coach of the Canadian women's team. Good morning, Mr. Arnold.
Morning, Jason.
Perhaps you could tell us a little bit first about how you got involved with coaching a women's team in Canada.
Tristan Waldock, who was the coach in 2011 at IC, came to me in 2012 before we played the US in Ohio, and mentioned that he was looking at moving on, and it was something I was really interested in. My wife's from Edmonton, and we're going to be here for a while, and so footy's been a big part of my life. So one of the things I wanted to get involved with was football locally and have an impact. So when that opportunity came up, I jumped at it. So I went across to Ohio and met the girls, and unfortunately lost that game against the US. I think it was the first time the girls had been beaten. The US team played really well, and it sort of motivated me to be involved. And they're such a great group of girls, really passionate about their footy, and so it was a pretty easy decision, to be honest.
And you played football in Victoria, or?
Yeah, in Victoria, mainly in Ballarat League. My hometown's Bacchus Marsh, so I played most of my football there. Had 2 ACL injuries, unfortunately, which sort of made me from a good average footballer to a very average footballer, and then went down the coaching path.
Nice. So we at Bigfooty have, I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but we kind of adopted one of your players. She's apparently in the Midnight Suns side.
Absolutely.
We kind of adopted her after feeling that there was some sort of injustice being perpetrated on a certain competition she was involved in last year.
I followed the threads with interest, Jason. It was quite an interesting time.
We were quite taken with that. I think we at Bigfooty all like to think that we played a part in her getting a victory there. And we were a little bit disappointed she didn't make the first women's team, but we were immensely glad when she was named to the second side. So.
Yeah, I think, and as much as it's the toughest part of coaching, making the phone call, well, in this case phone call rather than face to face, because the girls are spread across the country, which makes it even tougher. And the thing about Renee is she's such a quality individual that she made it a lot easier than it would have been. But it also, I think, rather than it be a reflection on Renee, it's more a reflection on the team, and we're pretty excited about the group. We've got such depth now. And the Midnight Suns is another example of that depth, that within 48 hours we can pull together 24, 25 girls that are pretty passionate about representing their country.
So how did it come about that you guys actually ended up with 2 teams instead of 1 going to the International Cup?
When Papua New Guinea pulled out, there was an opportunity to replace them, and initially there was flagged for a North American team. But as the US already had their development team there, they were pretty keen to have that development team replace Papua New Guinea. And so we asked for an opportunity to also put in a second team, which at the time we thought might have been a long shot, given we had no notice for the girls. But over the weekend, a number of phone calls and emails, and 48 hours later, we had one of the provisos where they had to have funds to be able to go, and so it wasn't necessarily a selected team. The team was based on girls that were playing, that were passionate about their footy. And in saying that, the majority of those that are playing in the Midnight Suns are girls that have played in their development team before, or were on the verge of. So, they put their hands up and said, yep, we're in. And so then we had to scramble with jerseys and off-field kits and coaches. And so there was a lot of legwork by a lot of people to get us to the point we are now.
Excellent. So you're officially the coach of both sides, are you?
Head coach of the Lights, and I've delegated, because it's such a huge commitment coaching these 5 games in 10 days. It was important to us that we didn't lessen the experience for the Lights, who'd been preparing for, most of them been preparing for 2 years for this occasion. And to be able to split that role would have been really tough. So I was fortunate enough to have Mark Peterson, who MP is in Australia, who was the assistant coach to Tristan in 2011, who was, one phone call said, yep, love to be involved, and being able to move his life sideways in a short period of time to be the coach, along with 2 assistant coaches, were being able to organise. And one of the players stepped up as team manager, and so they're pretty much self-sufficient. And there's a lot of things we'll be doing together. Parts of training, some events that we'd planned for the Lights can include both teams. But it's also important for those group of girls that haven't spent any time together to have some time separate as a group, and so we've arranged that also.
I was talking to Lee Barnes, the coach of the Freedom, the US women, and he was saying that he's effectively coaching both women's sides. And
it'll be interesting. It's like, I'm sure it's possible. I think it was really important from our point of view. And in saying that, if we didn't have someone like Mark, I probably would have taken on, because it's important to have an experienced leader at the helm. And I'm just get on really well with Mark, and he's been there before. It's my first time doing an IC coaching wise, so we're fortunate to be able to have someone of MP's capabilities and the team that's supporting him to lead the Suns. We're pretty excited about that.
Excellent. I see as well that your International Cup Guernseys are on sale still. They've extended that apparently to the end of September.
Well, we were thinking they might get some buy-in from the Bigfooty crew. If they're all going to jump on board the Northern Lights and the Suns on the back of supporting Renee, we thought we might keep it open and see if there's some buy-in from predominantly the guys in Australia.
Well, that's what we think as well. We think that some of the guys will be late. Let's face it, we're guys. After all, we leave things to the last minute. But
absolutely,
I think I'm quite impressed with the jumpers that have been released. Actually, I thought
they're really good. Some of them
there's some very colourful ones, and some very some more colour in the AFL wouldn't go astray, to be honest. But yeah. So when you come, how many women do you have to choose from when you pick your main squad?
We had 20. You can have 30 in the squad. Initially, it was flagged at 28. We'd had 29, and then unfortunately, one of our players from Ottawa hurt her knee 2 weeks ago. So with the Lights, we've got 28 to choose from, and obviously on game day, anywhere between 22 and 24. And that's going to be the key. This is going to be a really interesting challenge for all the coaches that haven't been there before. And even the ones who've been in 2011, given the landscape's a little bit different. In the women's draw, we've got effectively 5 games in 11 days, which is more about rotation and preserving players than playing your best team every game.
Okay, so in total, how many women are you taking with you?
We've got 29 for the Lights, and I think we've got 27 for the Suns.
Okay, and you're travelling with the men, or are they travelling separately?
It was a logistical nightmare to try and coordinate it. With just pulling 29, or at that stage it was 30 women from across the country to try and get them together was near impossible, because the most important thing is just getting cheap flights. So we've got the bulk of our women are flying on QF94 from LA on Friday and arriving Sunday morning, and then all of our Northern Lights players are arriving on Sunday morning, and we get things going Sunday afternoon. The Suns are coming in at different times because of the shorter notice. Not all of them could have got the full 3 weeks off, so we've got the bulk of them arriving around Sunday and Monday, and I think there's only a handful that can't make it in time for the first game, because unfortunately with the change to 7 teams, the schedule changed, so that went from starting on the Tuesday the 12th till Monday the 10th. So that put a couple of girls out that couldn't have got time off the previous week, but we've still got a good core of players that'll represent in the first game.
Yeah, I wondered how you were going to do that. And I know talking to the US guys who have the same issues, they've got 100 of them basically staying in the one accommodation. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and we've got the same. The men and all 3 teams staying at the same accommodation. It was just transport-wise, getting them there. The priority was get the best flight you can for the cheapest price, and we'll meet you in Melbourne, and we'll go from there as a team.
So, are you guys pulling in any Australian-based players to go with your team, or is this all strictly
Yeah,
Canadians?
We've got not Australian-based, I wouldn't say necessarily. We've got, for the Lights, we've got two players that, one in particular, Kendra Hale, who moved across from Hamilton to Australia in January to prepare for IC. And she's had a great season. She's made the Vic Metro team and played in the draft game before the Bulldogs Melbourne, so and played quite well. So that's been really good for her. And so she plays her last game this weekend. So fingers crossed she doesn't get any niggles there. And then Lara Hilmy was an interesting one that we hadn't heard of before. She had a rookie season last year playing with the Sydney Shamrocks, which is predominantly an Irish team. And she won the best and fairest and made the team of the year in the Sydney Football League in her first year. And since then has gone on to represent the Sydney Football League this year in a couple of wins over Canberra. So she's a really good addition as well. So we've got those two players. And then in the Suns, we've got three players based in Queensland that are coming down as well.
Okay, excellent. Now, you mentioned that you're coming in on Friday. You're coming in a week early?
Leaving Friday. Leaving Friday, arriving Sunday.
So what sort of preparation do you do leading into... Like, do you have practice matches? I suppose it is easier to have practice matches when you've got two full sides with you, but, I mean, do you have any interaction with like women's football clubs or even AFL clubs?
Yeah, our plan, we've always had an alignment with Port Melbourne, which is linked with the link between Sydney and Port Melbourne. And so we're training on the 5 days next week at Port Melbourne, sharing the ground with the guys. Some of it we'll have to ourselves, and then there'll be a bit of combined. And so every morning there we'll be at Port Melbourne, and we've got some other skills sessions planned for the afternoon. But essentially that next week was about getting together, going through game plan and strategy, and just spending time together in the same space, because we haven't got the benefit of doing that. Parallel Cup, when we play the US, is the only time you really get together, and the odd camp, but even then you can't get every player together. So that's the main focus for next week.
Okay. Now, the Parallel Cup you mentioned, I believe you guys annihilated the Freedom in the last game you played. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we did. We won pretty convincingly.
Lee Barnes, I think, told me off for bringing it up, but
yeah. Well, and look, it was. I was really pleased. Regards to the scoreboard, I think it was 87-1 or something. But the important thing for us was that the year before we'd been beaten for the first time, and they're a really proud bunch, and it's a combination of girls that have played for the Lights in previous years, and some new players that have bought into what we're about, and they wanted to get the credibility back, and so they trained pretty hard in that 12-month period leading into Edmonton, and you have days where things go your way, but like I've said to the girls, because we don't play each other from week to week, the true test will be whether it was a fluke or whether it was on the back of the hard work they'd done. We'll find out on August the 10th.
Okay, so New Zealand obviously didn't send a team, which is probably how you guys ended up being able to put in a second side in, as well. I think
New Zealand and then Papua New Guinea. There were two that pulled out.
New Guinea fell, but Tonga and Fiji, I think, are sending teams for the first time.
Yeah.
So they're relatively unknown.
Exciting.
And it is exciting. But the Irish are likely to be your biggest competition given recent results. How do you see that?
It's an interesting one. It's like looking at the squad. They've gone with a mix of, rather than, because they've got domestic teams back in Ireland, they seem to have gone with a mix of players, Melbourne-based players. Over half the squad's Melbourne-based players, and a number of those are Gaelic footballers rather than Aussie rules players, which is interesting. And that might be because they haven't got enough buy-in from over in Ireland, or they may have just gone a different route. But so it's hard to get a gauge because half the group don't play AFL at the moment. So we'll know from the round matches what sort of shape they're in as far as knowledge of football, but you got to expect that given they're the champions last time and convincing champions, that they're definitely going to be the team to beat.
And it makes it kind of weird if they've got no league of their own in Ireland.
Oh, they do. There's teams there's a number of teams in Ireland that play on a regular basis. So a number of those players, a number of players in their squad are travelling across. I think there's 10 or 11 that are coming across that play regularly.
Does it concern you that they use such a large number of Australian-based players?
Oh, not really. I think the exciting thing is that because the women's competition's still establishing itself, I think it's great that they're representing again. And I've had a real focus with the girls on you can't control what you can't control. So it's pretty ambitious to talk about winning events when you don't even know who you're up against. When you go into a regular home and away season, what we'd be traditionally used to, you get a gauge after a few weeks about who the teams are and what's realistic as far as a goal. You may even know from the year before, what teams have recruited what. This is a whole different ball game. So I think we haven't, as coaches, haven't focused on, we're here to win it. Of course, we want to be competitive. But the most important thing for us is that we're prepared and we perform the best we can, and because we don't know who we're up against. But I'd imagine from the last I see that the Ireland would be they're going to be the challenge, as well as the US are going to. There was a number of players I know that didn't play in that game in Edmonton. And they're a pretty proud group, and they're really well coached. They've got experienced coaches there, so we're certainly not thinking we're over the line against the US either. And you don't know what's going to happen with Tonga and Fiji.
Well, absolutely, they're complete unknowns, really, aren't they?
And the other thing is the development teams. Like our development team's got these girls from Queensland, for example. We don't end up playing our own development team, but you don't know what you're going to get there either, because we've got a number of players there that we haven't. They're sight unseen as far as in Canada. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out between the Midnight Suns and the other teams.
Okay, now having a look at your draw, I'm guessing you're probably glad that the Suns aren't drawn the Midnight Suns aren't drawn to play the Lights at all.
Yeah, I think that might have been well planned. I think that would have been a really awkward situation. But again, you don't know what's going to happen come 3 versus 4 and the final. It may end up being that way depending on how Tonga and Fiji.
Yeah, again, talking to Lee Barnes about that, his nightmare is that they have to play each other.
Absolutely.
With the one set of coaching
it'd be really
stuff.
tough. It'd be really tough, especially in Lee's case if he's coaching both. You don't know what you do in that situation.
They would probably have to adapt, I suppose. Now, you're playing all your games at Royal Park.
Apart from the community round.
Until the community round, that's right. And your first game, the first women's game you've got is the Midnight Suns are playing Tonga.
Yep.
On August the 10th at 11:30 in the morning. The times are now out on the schedule.
Yes,
which is
bonus.
Good, because for a while there we were looking at it going, we don't know where to turn up, who to support or whatever.
Yeah.
But certainly 11:30 on a Sunday is a game that I expect many big footy people to turn out for, hopefully.
Great.
And
love that.
Make a day of it, because the Lights play the Freedom at 1:30.
I reckon that our game against US might be the highlight of the day. I think there's some pretty, on history, there's some uneven games in the men's draw, so I think it might be the game of the day.
Yeah, there's some interesting games there for sure. Personally, I'm looking forward to see Great Britain play France, to be honest. But
yeah, that'd be good. That would
be an interesting game. But yeah, jeez, it's not going to go down well. There's be some editing done here, don't you worry. Yeah, so hopefully we'll see a good. It's a Sunday, so hopefully we'll see a good contingent of big footy guys down there to see the Suns and the Lights play. It's pretty much one after the other. Ovals are next to each other, I think. So,
pretty excited about that. It's been a long time coming.
And then on the Wednesday, the 13th, you've got the Freedom playing the Midnight Suns.
Yep.
And that's at 9:30 in the morning, so a nice early start there.
Kicking the
dew off the grass, as we used to say.
Yeah.
And then at 11:30, you've got the Northern Lights playing the Liberty. So that ought to be another good day, although I expect a slightly smaller turnout from the big footy group due to it being a Wednesday. Yeah. And then your community rounds, you've got
Saturday at East Burwood, and the Suns don't play that weekend.
No, Northern Lights playing Fiji at Wheelers Hill there.
Yeah.
So that's a weekend game, so hopefully we'll see some
that'd be great.
Guys there. And then Ireland playing the Midnight Suns at Royal Park on the Monday the 18th.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenging game for them.
And then on the 20th, you've got the Suns playing the Liberty and the Knights, the Lights playing Tonga.
Yep.
They're at the same. In fact, those matches are immediately after each other at the same venue. So that's a Wednesday. And then the final is on the 23rd at Punt Road Oval. So
exactly,
steeped in history, Punt Road. But
well, and as a Tiger man all my life, that'd be pretty exciting to be able to. If I was fortunate enough to coach on that day, that'd be pretty exciting.
That would be interesting. So yeah, well, what benefits do you get out of being involved in the International Cup, Jason?
Personally?
Yeah. Well, not you. I mean, obviously the team.
The team. I think it's really like you've only got to see the fact that these girls, all 50 odd of them, have probably spent by the time it's all over around $5,000 of their own money, plus taking 3 weeks off work. A lot of them. They in itself see the benefit of being able to see live games, be able to know, because you don't see it all, as you guys know from watching on TV and seeing it live. It's such a big difference. Seeing, Canada's crazy about hockey, to see a whole lot of Australians that are crazy about Aussie rules. I think that's speaking to the girls that went in 2011, just the passionate sparks in the game to actually see the game that you love firsthand, get that experience separate to the playing the actual games. Just that being in the country when it's all happening, I think it's going to be fantastic for that group, and that's why I'm really excited about the second group. I'm really passionate about trying to get the Midnight Suns there, because instead of having 29 or 30, we've got close to 60 now that are going to get that experience and come back and tell others, recruit others, and just continue to develop the game. And the women's game at the moment is growing really quickly. And you only got to look in Australia how quickly it's grown in the last 10 years. It's significant. And the other thing I'm excited about in taking this group, in particular the Lights that have worked really hard, is I think that people will be surprised between a lot of the better teams in the women's draw, how well they perform, and the gap between the Australian players and the international players may not be as large as what people initially thought. And Kendra Hale, who's come across from Hamilton's an example of that, being selected in Vic Metro in her first season over there. So I think they'll get a lot of confidence from playing at IC, which they'll bring back here to the other players that can't make the trip.
I was going to ask you, how wide a gap do you think there is between the Canadian women and Australian women in terms of their skill levels?
Look, I think looking at watching Kendra playing in those games, and Kendra is one of our better players from the Lights perspective, and see her mix it with some of the best players there. And in one stage, she had to do a run with job with Daisy Pearce, who's known as one of, if not the best women's players at the moment, and limited it to 12 possessions for the day, and had a few herself. So using Kendra as an example, and that's the only way I can really gauge it at the moment, is that it's possible that with the way we're developing, that in 3 or 4 years' time, that if they were to get down the track of actually having more women's teams and getting to the point of a draft, which they flagged earlier in the year, potentially 5-6 years down the track, that they'd be looking this way to recruit some players.
Okay. Obviously, you've got star players that we should be looking out for. Who would you say they would be? Like, who should we be watching for at the International Cup?
Look, one of the things, and it's a cliche, I really feel that our group is extremely balanced, and one of the things I love about we've tried to develop since right back to the game in Ohio where they got beaten, we identified as an area we could improve in was having a wider group of players that could go through the midfield and have an impact. And so the benefit for us now is that we could have anywhere between 10, 12 players on the field that could actually go through the midfield. And that's usually helped by the fact that most of the players at their own club level are playing in the midfield. So they're experienced at that level. It was just getting their fitness to the point where they could play at that international level for extended periods of time. So Specific players, obviously, I've mentioned about Kendra. She's going to be she played well against the US in Parallel Cup and with the experience of playing at the Eastern Devils and against the best teams in the country. Well, she's going to play well. I think, Amy, I'm really excited about having our captain back. She didn't play against the US last year, having some surgery she was recovering from. Watching her closely the last couple of months, I think she's back to her best, if not even better than when she was injured, which is exciting for us. I think Lara Hilmy, who's been playing in Sydney, I mentioned earlier. I think she's one that people are going to like. She's got a hard-added, aggressive style and super fit as well. Of course, we've got Sylvie, who dominated the game against the US last August. She probably should have kicked 8 goals. It was a really windy day at Edmonton. There's not a lot of cover there, so she's really hard to match up on, being so tall and our fastest, fittest player. She runs a 12-minute 3K.
Jeez.
And is and probably 6'2", 6'3", so really hard to match up on. And so we got fortunate to be able we could play her on the wing, play her pretty much anywhere. So she's an exciting player to watch. I could go on. I think the thing I love about, like I said, is that there's a wide range of players there that all have an impact and can play in different positions. And there's other players coming through that didn't play in the game against the US last year that I think are going to get a taste of this level footy that I'm optimistic are going to play really well too. I'd rather keep those to myself.
I see. Keeping secrets from us already. No, that's all very good.
Taking the pressure off them. I don't want to put those players I mentioned. They're going to expect to play well because they're quality players. Some of the others that are relatively new to this level, they're already pretty excited and about the opportunity. And I think it's important to sort of keep it balanced so that they don't have too big an expectation on them.
Yeah, of course. No, I understand that. Last thing you want is 100-odd big footy folk turning up and putting pressure on.
Hey, that would be exciting for us to have 100-odd big footy folk cheering us on.
I'm hoping that there's a decent turnout of big footy folks. We're going to push it on the podcast tonight and next week as well. So on our main board one. So
that'd be fantastic.
We've been pushing this pretty much for a year now, so it's
great.
It's not showing any signs of dying off. The thread's still alive.
Good.
Renee keeps popping in every now and then. Another one of your players keeps popping in. So
is that Jen Nichols?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Jen's been a really hard worker the last 12 months, and she's developed into a really good footballer for us.
And hopefully you guys sell more Guernseys and whatnot to pay for the trip. So.
Oh, that'd be great. That's a bonus. But just to see the jerseys out there, like there's a number that have bought them. I know my family's bought a few because my wife's one of the players, and so it's going to be great to see a lot of national jerseys out there.
Excellent. Was there anything else you wanted to add that we haven't covered?
Well, I think it's pretty comprehensive. I'm just can't wait to get over there. And I'm really glad now that. Really glad that the girls have essentially, other than Kendra and Lara, have got one more game this weekend. The girls have got no more games left, so it's always, it's such a tough conversation to have with Holly Costanza, who hurt her knee for Ottawa, to do all that hard work and then effectively being ruled out for the IC before it's begun.
Oh,
so when you talked about doing practice matches and so forth, I'm probably going to steer away from that.
Less
It'll be more around
yeah.
the skill work and just for no other reason than. I back our girls to be hard at the footy, and I don't think they need to do much more practice on that. I think it's more around just giving them the opportunity to be able to play and not get injured. I think it's really important at this stage, less about the competition, more about just giving them that experience and be able to play. And if they're unlucky enough to get injured during that experience, at least they've got on the field and had a crack at it. But that was really tough for Holly, who's a really respected and loved player in the squad. So she's still coming across, and she's got straight back on the horse, so to speak, and rehabbing with the hope that she can actually get out on the track with the girls and train, which is pretty inspiring for all of us. So, and who knows? She's a bit of a warrior, so it wouldn't surprise me to see her train to the point where we could select her, and that'd be a bonus because she's a fantastic player.
Excellent. good to hear anyway that you've got some dedicated players
Absolutely.
to go along with some very dedicated staff, and
Yes,
it's just encouraging to see the growth in the sport that you can send 2 teams over. And
I think the key thing for us, one of the first messages I sent to the girls was that if you're going to represent your country, your family and friends should know what sport you play and that you're serious about it.
Yep.
And you see Olympic athletes they're talking about the Parade of Nations, and you should look like an athlete, and you've done the work and you feel like an athlete. And I'm really proud of our group because they've been super dedicated and a large number of them for just on 2 years. Heading into this tournament, we had 2 goals. One was to win back the Parallel Cup, which we did convincingly, and the second one was to participate in the IC and be and we came runner-up in 2011, and there was a number of girls that aren't able to make the trip this time that were really, they did a phenomenal job to be pulled together at short notice and be runner-up to the Irish with them in mind, and trying to go a step further and win the thing, which would be fantastic. But initially, just to get the squad over there and have that experience of playing 4 games, and let's see if we're good enough to play in a 5th.
Okay. I haven't got any further questions. My biggest regret about the whole thing is that I actually won't be able to get over there.
Oh,
myself.
really?
I'm in Adelaide, and just circumstances won't allow me to get there now. Whereas
That's a shame.
I had big plans. I did, and
so there's absolutely no chance.
No, I can't. I won't be able to get there. There would have to be a
especially
minor
if you've
miracle.
been part of those threads, and there's been a bit of hype around it. That's it's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, I'm quite spewing, and I really do hope that people don't let me down. They know who they are.
One thing that it'd be good to share, especially if there's others that can't be there, we've arranged video of every one of the Suns and Lights games, and the plan is to upload those as close to after the game as we can, so those who can't make it, especially our family and friends in Canada, will be able to see them. But then, Jason, there's an opportunity for you to see the games, so you'll be able to see Renee run around, and then the Lights players, Jen and the Lights players, do their thing as well.
Well, hopefully you win, and we'll get you back on after the International Cup to have a chat.
Happy to.
All right, well, I've been talking to Jason Arnold, the coach of the Canadian women's sides that are heading over here on Friday. And you can see them all beginning Sunday, August the 10th at Royal Park. And hopefully you all turn up like you promised. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.